Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, one of the most frequent emails I get in my inbox from you all is, Neil, how do I enter a career in tech? And I have got to know many of you over the years quite well, and I know that you often get crippled with self-doubt and how you might perceive that you're not technical enough or you don't have the time to study. The good news is every single person is crippled with those feelings of self-doubt and the occasional bout of imposter syndrome. But the way I see it is we have entire industries such as the hospitality industry that has been decimated because of the global pandemic. We also, on the flip side of that, have a thriving tech scene that is crippled by a huge tech skill shortage. So I often find myself daydreaming and wondering, so what would happen if we take all these people that are already armed with amazing soft skills, which often cannot be taught, and actually give them the tools and education that they need to enter a career in tech? And that is a topic that I want to explore today and hopefully deliver a message that regardless of your background or your age, there is an opportunity for you out there. So today I've invited Mark Wheatland from a company called The Learning People on the podcast to talk about how to switch to a career in tech, or if you're a business, how to upskill and retrain and help your current employees specialise in an area where the tech skills are in short supply. And also we'll explore some of the hot areas of tech shortages and those skills gaps. So wherever you're listening in the world, I'm going to ask you to buckle up and hold on tight, because I'm going to beam your ears all the way to the UK so you can join me and Mark Whelan about how anybody can prepare for a career in tech. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Mark. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
I'm Mark Wheatland. I'm head of curriculum at The Learning People, and my role in the business is to kind of identify certifications, training pathways that will help students move into normally their first position in tech, or maybe get their first promotion, or possibly that next big move. So it's kind of around finding the kind of content that will enable people to move on and move up.
So the big question I've got to start with is, how did you get here? What's your origin story? Where did your passion for tech come from? And how did that collide with the world of education?
Funny enough, I mean, I feel a bit of a fraud because in some respects, I kind of came into tech very sideways, and given some of the illustrious people you've had on your podcast, I'm not sure I'm worthy, but it's along a meandering road, I suppose. But I started off a long time ago in retail, and that kind of led to a few sort of technical retail areas and management and things, and that kind of morphed into mobile data solutions. And I was at the I'm old enough to have been around when BlackBerry brought out the BES server, the BlackBerry Enterprise Solution, and all that sort of thing. So I kind of got involved in those sort of technical end of solutions kind of things. So that's where I started with that, and then there was the training around that, and how do you kind of get over to people the concept of utilizing some of these things. And I was when people had a PDA and didn't know what it was. So it was a collision of introducing people to technology and trying to explain to them how to utilize it, get the best use out of it, usually for a largish organization, so they could kind of get that return on investment, because they were expensive things in those days.
And I would say, after interviewing nearly 2,000 people, the vast majority didn't start their life thinking, I want to go into technology as a career. Everyone kind of seemed to go into it sideways, or a moment of serendipity, and sort of various things happen. But I mean, your path led you to The Learning People, and we will have people listening all over the world that are maybe just hearing about you for the first time. So can you just offer a bit of an overview of the kind of problems that you're solving for your customers?
Yeah, so we predominantly help students, our students are people that we help to get a position or get their first position in IT. So it's usually people who are looking for a career change, who are fed up with what they're doing for a living, have heard that working in IT or the broader sort of tech arenas are, more fulfilling, better paid, less hard work sometimes. And so our students tend to find us because they're looking for a job, or they're looking to make a move. So that'll tend to be how they find us. We kind of have quite a wide range of portfolio in terms of courses. So what people are doing is, it could be that they're looking on a job board and they might come across us through something, or they're kind of just organically searching on the internet to try and find a way to get a new job or to get into tech or whatever it is. So people come to us for a lot of channels, but fundamentally it's usually because they're looking to move from what they're doing. And we're kind of that first stepping point, and that kind of, how do I do this? There's one of the strap lines we use a lot is we try and demystify careers in tech, and I think that's important for people because it isn't obvious for lots of people how you get into tech. If you, again, as you said, there are some people who will go, I know I want to work in tech, and I'll go and get a degree. But a lot of people kind of go, where do I start with this? It's not always that obvious, and lots of people lack the confidence to do it. So they think, okay, I might like to do this, but how do I get started? And then they need someone to kind of guide them and hold their hands, because it's complicated.
It really is. And I think there's a lot of people that, especially after the last 2 years, are considering completely retraining and entering a world of tech, but then they talk themselves out of it and say, well, I'm not a math genius and I'm not a technical person. But it's a bit of a myth, isn't it? You don't need to be.
No, you can absolutely start with very little technical knowledge. And, lots and lots of our people have previously been an arts student, or they've worked in, a care home, or, it can be anything that's got that. I mean, you have to have an interest to an extent, but it can take you in all sorts of directions. And it's not just about, sitting in front of a machine and plugging in cables or writing thousands of lines of script. There's lots of different job roles within that broader tech space, and some of them are really high tech demands, and high kind of process orientated jobs. Some of them are much more people focused and on the people end of it. So there's a mixture, and there's something for most people, I'd say. And people underestimate the skills they've already got. So they might have been working in a shop and they're actually quite good at communicating with people, and they don't see that as a transferable skill. And yet, as we both know, people working in IT quite often lack some of the softer skills that are useful when it comes to finding out what a client wants or helping someone with something.
100% with you in that. In fact, this podcast stemmed from a very similar situation to that. I was sat in so many different meeting rooms in IT that had IT one side and various stakeholders from around different departments in the business on the other. As soon as the IT guy opened his mouth, started talking about SQL licenses and why they can't do stuff, everyone started thinking about what they wanted to eat that evening and losing the will to live. So the soft skills side of it is so important, isn't it?
Yeah. And lots of, and particularly where you've already had a career, you have probably picked up a lot of those skills. And we know, I read a stat the other day that when our hiring managers have been asked, are hiring for tech roles, have been asked why they didn't hire people for that particular role, and lots of them have gone for vacancies. A third of them came back with the fact that the candidates lacked the soft skills. So it wasn't about their inability or their lack of hard skills. It was the fact that they felt that they didn't have the soft skills required, and that was a good enough reason for the candidates not to get the job. So I think there is a growing awareness that that's an important thing. And whenever we look at surveys of employers and things that the government are producing, those skills are really critical. And lots of people have already got them. But so if they marry that up to learning some stuff around tech, and they're in a good place.
100% with you on that. And of course, there's so much talk at the moment about the Great Resignation and the growing tech skills shortage. So it seems like a pretty simple equation to me that we need to get more people into tech. And it's never been easy, and it's a great opportunity. But what are the hot areas of those shortages and skills gaps? Is there anything that really stands out?
Yeah, there is. I'm yet to be completely convinced about the Great Resignation, but even before that became a thing, there was quite a lot of areas in tech where employers are finding it really hard to find people. I think cybersecurity is very hot. Cloud computing has become even hotter than it was before because of kind of that drive to digital transformation largely from the pandemic. And data in its many forms is becoming probably, there is a tidal wave of data out there, and knowing how to use it and what to do with it is becoming an increasing problem for all businesses. And there's always been a shortage of good developers, coders, people who can make stuff happen in the back end of things. And so there is definitely, those are the hot areas. And you've got this kind of IT for a long time had this kind of ticking time bomb. You've got lots of middle-aged men, dare I say, people in their 50s. There is a sort of like literally a demographic time bomb in IT because you haven't got the if you look at the demographics, certainly in the Western world, you haven't got as many young people as you need to fill all these vacancies, and you've got lots of other people, probably with good pension plans, who will be leaving the industry. And, certainly in the UK, I think we've seen Brexit have a bit of an effect in terms of less access to European, staffing routes. And then you add on a pandemic where you've accelerated the digital transformation of all these businesses. There's even more demand for tech people than there ever has been.
And the skill shortage is really critical right now. And I'm curious, as someone that works with students, recruiters, businesses, and having lots of conversations, what are the biggest challenges of recruiting when actually there's no one in that elusive 2 years of experience, Paul?
Yeah, the biggest problem is the fact that recruiters will always want someone who's got 2 years experience.
Yeah. And
that's impossible because they won't ever take on people who haven't got 2 years experience. So people are never going to get the 2 years experience. And it becomes a bit of a vicious circle. And, I think that's where we kind of have found our niche because, it's a bit of a cliche, but that certifications are the currency of IT, but there is some truth in that. And it's becoming increasingly the case that certifications are a proxy for understanding someone's abilities. So, the challenge is to get people to kind of do some training to build up some skills, and then to persuade employers that, yep, they haven't got the 2 years experience, but they have got the certification. They do know what they're doing. There's no, there is no way around experience. Experience is important and is useful, but there just aren't people out there with that experience. There just aren't.
And I often feel for the kids out there as well, because many are in school now trying to learn and prepare for job roles that don't actually even exist yet by the time that they leave school. And many university IT degrees are often not fit for purpose and in danger of being outdated by the time they graduate. How are you seeing this problem being addressed?
I think, again, that's an interesting one. I think just on the subject of schools, I think we still as a country don't do a great job of teaching tech in schools. The curriculum has not been good, and people are not doing it in schools. There's a fall off in people studying it at A level, going into universities. The numbers aren't great, and it is something where from our point of view, I think. Funny enough, actually, quite a lot of people come to us who've already got a degree. And that's not necessarily an IT degree, but even when they have got an IT degree, as you say, that stuff that they've learned on a curriculum that has to be planned years in advance and only gets changed once in a while means that they kind of don't have all the necessary skills or knowledge that are required by employers. So I think that where we can help with that is that kind of certification pathway and kind of those kind of skills areas. So there's all sorts of things within the training platforms that we can do to help people, both in terms of benchmarking their existing skills and in terms of kind of taking them across into other areas. So it could be that you're looking at a certification pathway just so that they cover off some of the basic things. A lot of certifications, particular things from CompTIA, for example, have an element and Microsoft have an element whereby they're based on job roles, and they're trying to give people an idea of the sorts of skills and things that they'll need for particular job type roles. So that's one area we can do it. Sometimes with certainly with coding and developer things, React is a classic example where people weren't being taught elements of, so for example, React is a good example.
Yeah,
people weren't being taught that at university, but employers wanted people to have with knowledge of React. We've got some React pathways that we can put people on so they can brush up their skills in that particular area, because that's what employers are looking for. And I think the other thing that's important in that area is it is the hard skills, it is the soft skills, and it's also that other piece of which we offer around career services, where people are, we help people understand what employers are looking for. We help them kind of pick out the key things in jobs. We talk them through interviews, talk them through how to present their CV, how to point to their GitHub and if they've got that, and all those sorts of things. And so there's a package of things that we do to kind of help people who are there to fill that gap, because employers are not getting, they're not getting those key people from universities. They're getting some, but they're not getting enough. So it's a whole, probably in some respects, that's kind of the whole of what we do, is to fill that whole piece: hard skills, soft skills, all that stuff around interview technique, understanding what people are looking for in a job, understanding how to present yourself in an interview.
And as we said at the very beginning of the podcast, it does feel like a great opportunity for people, even with zero technical background, to retrain and enter a tech career. And maybe they're already in the world of in a big corporate environment, and they're working alongside IT on projects and things, and thinking, I'd like to maybe try and get involved in that. But are there any tips around that? Because it does seem to be a great opportunity in the moment, but that's from me on this side of the fence. Is that something that you're seeing too?
Yeah, we, for a variety of channels, we talk to employers quite a lot. We're a member of Tech UK, for example, say 150 of the UK's tech companies, and it is at every stage of the kind of career pathway that someone's in IT. So there's a shortage of entry level people coming in. There's just a dearth of people coming in at that end. Then there's the issues around slightly more technical skills, which aren't there in the employees that these companies have got. Partly that's because technology is changing so much. So there's that kind of deficit of knowledge that comes from the fact that tech has changed and people haven't kind of kept up with it. And that kind of actually that goes up to the senior levels as well. People, it's really hard to recruit top people for tech companies now, because people don't necessarily have that kind of range of skills and understanding. And I think round about half of, in IT and telecoms, this is a TCMS report, around about half of IT and telecoms companies train their staff, which means around about half don't at all. That's offer any training to staff. So there is a large amount of people working in IT, probably about, in the UK, about 1.3 million people in that sort of IT tech kind of space. And around about half of them don't get offered any training by their employers at all. So there is a big need, not just at the entry level, but kind of through there for these people to be able to get the training, to get the skills. As we know, skills are vital to the productivity of a business, the success of a business, to the success of the country. You've got to, I don't want to sound like Tony Blair, but you kind of, educating people is really important, because that is the way your business thrives and it survives in kind of some tough times, but thrives and goes on and creates more jobs for more people. You've got to have that kind of skills base in the organisations if they're going to succeed.
Completely agree with you on that. It's such a powerful message. And we will have people listening all over the world. Some will be sat on the fence thinking, have I got what it takes to enter a career in tech? Some will be at the beginning of a career in tech wanting to make that step up into another role. So I want to ask you a big question now. Do you have any successful student stories that you could share that might inspire people listening, and how you've helped them from a variety of ages and backgrounds actually enter a career in tech?
Sure. I mean, I think it's interesting, because we always say that we're helping people get into a career in tech, and it's their first step quite often, a lot of our students. However, the age range of our students does go from 18 to 65. So there is a big kind of spread of people, and people are making kind of big career changes at the moment in particular. You mentioned earlier on, hospitality and things that have been affected by the pandemic. So, we've got recently we've had a restaurant manager who's 12 years being a restaurant manager, has now just completed their 4 or 5 projects on the coding course. And we know that they're going to be getting a job shortly because there is the demand for it. They're going through the whole career services thing. Last week, there's a chap called Andres, who was a chef for many years, and he's just got a job with a moderately well-known Wi-Fi provider in the UK as an IT engineer. So he'd done best part of 12 months training, and now he's kind of got this job, and he kept doing that while he's been a chef. So all credit to him. That's not an easy thing to do. But he's gone from being a chef to, I think his job title is IT engineer now. And we did definitely see during the pandemic a big uptake, or big move of people from hospitality type areas who are looking for something to do. And it wasn't, they were on furlough, some of them, and it wasn't that they were necessarily, it wasn't the financial thing in terms of where they were at. It was just understanding how vulnerable their job was, and then being given that chance to stop and think about what they would like to do. And it is powerful. But I mean, over the years, we've had people who've gone. We had a chap who was a scaffolder, and he didn't think he could do it. He didn't think he could get into a job in tech. And so a lot of it was the conference building with them. When you're talking to these people, it's not just about, as I said, about those kind of hard skills, but it's about helping them understand what that role looks like. But I mean, there's countless. I can remember a chap who was working in his dad's corner shop. Hadn't gone to university because his family didn't think they could afford it, and he should waste his time doing that. But he kind of got down to it, spent the best part of a year studying, and then got a job with a Vast. From working his dad's corner shop. So there's loads and loads and loads. And it's funny enough, and it's very cliched to say these things, but it is, all these stories, when you're talking to these students and you're listening to the story and things, they are heartwarming and motivational for us, as much as it's pleasing that they are kind of, helping fill those skills gaps, that it is changing their lives. But you do get a real sense of achievement as a group when people are doing that.
Oh, I absolutely love stories like that. I could listen to them forever. And I think for many people listening, there's one of 2 reasons that they talk themselves out of making a move into a career change, such as a big step into the tech industry, for example. One is, I'm not technical, I'm not capable, I can't do this. It's just like that self-doubt and imposter syndrome kicking in. And then the other is, I haven't got time, I've got family commitments, I've got to pick the kids up, etc. And so for those people listening, how much time would someone need to follow a path like this? What would be your best advice to someone listening?
It varies. I mean, it's a bit of a how long's a piece of string, but some courses you can do. There are some quick courses, short courses that you can do in sort of 20, 30, 40 hours that you can sit an exam at the end of. And that might be enough for some people. There's some, people got very specific needs. Up to you might need to look at committing 500 or 600 hours of study over a period of time. Generally, most of our students are with us for sort of 12 to 18 months. Nearly all, because as we said, with kind of career changes, nearly always they're doing the course alongside the job and alongside the family life and all those other things. So, 10 hours a week is quite a common amount of study that people will do. Some people will do a lot more, and some obviously will do less. But it's if someone says that they can commit to about 10 hours a week of study, then you think yes, you'll be able to make progress pretty quickly on that sort of thing. And it can, even at the 600-hour mark, when you think of the change that it can make in someone's life, it's not easy. It's not we always try to say to people that this is a commitment on your behalf. You're going to have to work hard at this. It doesn't just fall into place. But if you're willing to do it, then you can, inside a year, you can make a big difference. I mean, there are stories of people doing things in a few weeks and getting a job out of it. And I try not to encourage people to talk about it too much, because you don't want to make it sound easy, because it's there's lots of work to do. But you can do it pretty quickly if you want to.
Fantastic advice. And we started the podcast talking about your origin story and how you got here. But now I'm going to ask you to leave everyone listening with a personal touch of inspiration by sharing maybe a book that has inspired you, or a guilty pleasure, a go-to song, or a song that's important to you. What are you going to leave us with today? And is there a story to accompany your choice?
Well, so fairly recently, a chap called Oliver Burkeman wrote a book called 4,000 Weeks. And I'd been reading Oliver Burkeman's stuff for a long time. He did a column in a paper called This Column Will Change Your Life. And it was kind of looking at dissecting the self-help and time management and all those kind of areas. And he's written this book. 4,000 Weeks is approximately the average human lifespan in the Western world. And it's a really, really interesting book around our obsession with time and to an extent time management, but kind of how we think about time, how we make choices about how we use time. And it's a really good look at that whole thing. And it's quite sobering in some respects, but it's also quite funny and quite insightful. And there's a thing in the book, and I do strongly recommend it to anyone. And anyone I have recommended it to, by the way, thank me for it. It is there's a line in there which is something along the lines of, any life, however good it is always a matter of ceaselessly waving goodbye to possibility. And I think that is kind of very true, particularly when talking to our students, but everyone. You've got to make a choice. Not making a choice is still making a choice. You've got to go for things. You'll never know what would have been, if you stay where you are, if you move, whatever, whether it's a relationship or a job or new career, but it's a really, really good book. Thoroughly recommend Oliver Burkeman, 4,000.
Well, I'll add that to our Amazon wish list. A bit conflicted with my response here, because one side of me, I'm quite excited to check it out myself. But on the other flip side of that, there's the realisation that I've probably only got 1,400 weeks left.
Yeah, it is. I mean, even the title is quite thought-provoking, isn't it? Because,
it really is. And for anyone listening that would like to find out more information about what you're doing at Learning People, how to contact your team, and maybe check out a few blogs, etc., of the kind of things and opportunities that are available, what's the best starting point?
I mean, the easiest way to find us is learningpeople.com. You'll find all the blogs and everything there, and the links to our socials. So we're on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, but learningpeople.com is probably the best way. And LinkedIn, and if people want to connect to me on LinkedIn, I'm there under Mark Wheatland.
Well, thank you so much for busting a few myths today on how to switch to a career in tech, how you don't need to be a technical genius or have a technical background to do it, and also exploring some of those hot areas of shortages and skills gaps and sharing your personal story and leaving me with a thought-provoking book title as well. So thanks so much.
No, been my pleasure. Nice to speak to you.
So the big takeaways from today's conversation is that the tech skill shortage means that there is no one in that 2 years experience pool that employers are asking for. Due to the shortages in skills gaps, we need to fill that hopper back up again. And for example, did you know that in Asia Pacific alone, they're bracing themselves for a shortfall of 3 million unfilled cybersecurity positions? Can you imagine that? 3 million jobs where nobody's applying. So if everyone can put their self-doubt and imposter syndrome about their ability to one side, and regardless of their age and background, put their heart and soul into this, they could grab that opportunity and enter a career in tech. But I am one of life's dreamers, an eternal optimist. So over to you. What is holding you back? And do you have a story that you can share that might inspire people listening? Everybody, including myself and today's guest and everyone listening, are all at various stages of a career. But what if we all share these ideas and our own stories and help each other out? Those are the foundations that this podcast is built on, and it can only carry on if you share your stories with me. So please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram at Neil C. Hughes, and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. Keep your stories and questions coming in, and tomorrow I hope you join me again. We're going to tackle a completely different topic. I hope you'll join me. So thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.